Hey there, fabulous ladies. Welcome to Bring Back Your Pink, where we celebrate the fabulousness of midlife and beyond. I am Jen B, your host, your biggest fangirl and impact-driven entrepreneur living my biggest and boldest life, so you can too. Get ready to leave behind societal expectations and embrace a life filled with laughter, joy, and endless possibilities. So stand tall, turn up the volume, and let's dive into the world of living life in full color. Together, we'll rediscover the power of being unapologetically ourselves, and we will release our inner vibrancy, and together we will bring back our pink. Let's make every moment count, girls. Hello, lovely ladies. I am so excited today. I have a young friend of mine on today, and she is amazing. I've known Sammi for a few years now, and she's an incredible young lady. So I would like you to meet Sammi Jaeger, an entrepreneur, a co-founder, an integrator, a coach, a soon-to-be author, and the vibrant co-host of the Date Forever podcast. When life tossed Sammi a curveball, she didn't just rebound. She reimagined her journey, paving her way towards a life that is truly fueled up. And here's the juicy bit. She designed it all from scratch herself. So at the heart of Sammi's passions lies a belief in the transformative power of relationships and their impact on the tapestry of our lives. A staunch supporter of the UN global goals, Sammi champions the notion that each of us hold a piece to the puzzle in crafting a brighter, better world. Let's go and find out more about this mission and watch the magic unfold. Welcome, Sammi. I'm so excited to have you here.
Jen, thank you so much for having me. And I know we're on like an audio only medium, but I have donned the pink for the Bring Back Your Pink podcast today.
I'm so impressed. I don't even really have much. I've got a little bit of pink on, but you're
what about all that hair? That head of hair,
yeah.
it counts. And the nails. Yeah. So
yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel very at home here.
I have a flamingo on my nails today. So I'm rocking it completely. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Now, I thought to start, you said in your bio that you hit a crossroad, like a brick wall. What happened here? And when did you experience, the burnout, or making it relevant right here, to the losing your pink? Because how old are you, Sammi, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 34.
Yeah, so you're a young lady. And to have gone through burnout and that at this age, that must have been very traumatic.
Yeah, so it was in the last couple of years of my 20s, 26, 27, 28, and most of 29. I was like really giving my career my everything. I had studied as a project manager specializing in events, but I had sort of pivoted away from that, realizing that I had sort of hit a salary ceiling, and I wanted to be able to earn more and have more impact. And a career coach had helped me sort of identify that I had a lot of transferable skills to move from like that project management into like leadership and team management. So I'd secured a GM role of a training and education company that was a remote first team. So we had team in, I think it was 11 different time zones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was never an off. There was always somebody on the team who was on the clock. And I went all in on my growth, on my development, personally and professionally. And I really just burnt myself out. It all came to a head at the start of 2019, a couple of months before I turned 30, and I realized like, hey, a couple of things have changed in this business quite quickly, and I can no longer see myself here long term. And look at the state of my life. Like, I have neglected some friendships, some relationships, some hobbies, some interests. My plan for the future was to stay in this company and keep growing and building myself professionally. And now that future is like invisible. I can't see it. I can't fathom it. And as soon as I realized that, I felt so incongruent staying. And I quit with no plan. And then basically spent most of 2019 trying to bring back my pink. I can say now I reflect on that and I'm incredibly incredibly grateful to have had that experience in my 20s. But yeah, it's pretty young to have burnt yourself out.
It really is, because I too have done something similar and left a job, and just I actually woke up one day and I said, I can't go there again. Like, I can't go there. And I did quit. But I was probably about 38 at the time. And it had taken me a number of years being in this particular business to realize that there's just no way I could go back there. So well done to you for being so incredibly self-aware to realize what was happening, because so many of us at that age are not like that. I mean, so many young ones are just coming out of study and finishing off, and for you to be so self-aware is incredible. With more hindsight, and we all have hindsight, we love hindsight and wisdom, like the wisdom that you have now, can you see what the root cause of why you burnt out in the first place was?
Yeah, I think that it's hard to say, but I don't think I actually felt worthy of that opportunity. And I think I was working overdrive to prove my own worthiness for that big opportunity. And I was smashing it out of the park, but probably because I was over investing at the expense of other areas of my life, like not just in time, but in energy, and also in a lot of ways money, like in the additional learning and development and things that I was doing, in the volume of hours that I was willing to exchange for the salary that I was being paid. I didn't have any skin in the game. Didn't have any equity. I wasn't a shareholder. I was an employee. And I'm sure probably everyone listening to this show can recognize that moment that they've had in life that was like, I don't know what, but not this.
And everyone.
And it was like, I don't know what it's going to be after this, but it cannot be this. Something has to change. And yeah, I resigned in January after taking a couple of weeks off over the Christmas break. And I didn't really take the time off. Like, I was overseas, and I was still answering emails and responding to team and juggling the balls. And it was like, why am I doing this for someone else if I really want to do all of these things and continue to grow and develop? Like, why am I not doing this for myself? But I hadn't really arrived there yet. But yeah, to your question, like, in hindsight, what was I doing? I was trying to prove my worth to myself, to my team, to the person who had given me that opportunity, to the world, to everyone.
Well, the thing is, especially in our 20s, we are so very driven. I look back to my 20s and, burning the candle at both ends, proving myself. I worked in advertising at that time. So proving myself in agencies, proving, yes, that I was good enough to be working in, I worked in one of the big agencies, that I was good enough to be there. And we do just burn out. And actually, I left that big agency to work in a smaller one, because I just was like, I was burnt out. And I was like, I don't want this life. I don't want this life. I want to work in a smaller place, more like family and, a bit more fun. But how did this experience change the way from then on, that you were doing life and work?
Yeah. So 2019, like I said, I went overseas, and, I'd been doing some freelance projects and things for myself. And Nathan, my husband, spent 3 or 4 months in Europe, and Nathan had a deadline to go back to Australia because, he had a job. I did not. And we were coming to the end of the trip, and we were in Madrid, and Nathan's like, I've got to book my flight home. I got to get back to work. And I was like, yep. I cannot do that. I can't go back to my life because I don't know what that is. I don't know what that life is. I don't know. So I flew from there to Lombok, Indonesia, and basically spent 2 weeks crying. I was so fatigued. Even after those few months off, I was still so exhausted, and the thought of having to show up to work in any capacity was just still so far out of what I felt I had capacity to do. And I started to really think about was I who was I blaming for this situation? What excuses was I making for how I'd got here? What was I denying was the reality? And I really just started to take some ownership, take some accountability, and then responsibility for, okay, well, what are you going to do now, Sammi? So it was kind of there those 2 weeks, and I was so disorientated and exhausted, and it was like, I'd meant to be on this soul searching journey for months, and it felt like I was like cramming it. I was cramming it into these 2 weeks before I was like, oh, eventually, Sammi, you're gonna have to go home and figure out what you want to do with your life, not just your career, but your life. And while I was there, I took one afternoon and I went and hired a wakeboard and jumped behind a boat and went wakeboarding for a couple of hours. And it was the best. I had just the most incredible time. And it wasn't something that I hadn't done in about 5 years. And I was reflecting on that experience. I was like, wow, this like really lights your soul on fire and is something that feels amazing, was so joyful and playful. Sammi, why haven't you done this in 5 years? Like, why have you deprioritized something that's so joyful for so long? And that really was like the catalyst to thinking about, well, what else have I been saying no to? What are the things that really fill me up, or what I now refer to as like add fuel to the tank that you haven't been doing? And I started journaling and figuring it out. Like, what are the things that you've removed from your life, whether or not consciously or unconsciously? I don't know if that answers the question, Jen, but that's where I started.
It actually does, because, I was sitting here reflecting while you were talking and thinking, sometimes you've been on this trip, it's been amazing. You've been with Nathan, but sometimes you have to slow down to speed up again as well. Not that you want to speed up, but, hey, if we're putting fuel in, you're going to go faster. But just having that time, and you needed to actually go and mourn as well and grieve for what was.
Totally.
Well. And that's a process within itself.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Hey, I didn't consciously know that I was going to go and carve out this bubble of time. And I know that this is incredibly privileged to be able to go to another country or another island, tropical island, and cry. Like, I get it that that's not available to everyone. And I'm so grateful for that time, because I really did. I needed to grieve. I needed to let go of what I thought the direction that my life was going. I needed to grieve some of the things that I'd like inflicted on myself. But yeah, it was from there that I started to get really, really curious about if I was going to redesign my life to serve me and to feel as good as a couple of hours on a wakeboard feels most of the time. What would that look like? What would that sound like? What would that feel like? How would I be spending my time? Who would be in my corner? Who wouldn't be in my life anymore? And that's kind of where the curiosity started.
And is that where the concept of living a fueled up life, is that how it came into being?
Yeah, that was the start. That was definitely the first inkling, that wakeboarding afternoon. But I got home, it was about early September of that year. And, I'd really spent most of that year avoiding the fact that I was burnt out, exhausted, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know how I'd lost my pink, and definitely didn't know how I was going to get it back. But later in that year, I sat down with some of the old plans and goal setting and things that I'd done in the previous years and went, okay, Sammi, you've clearly gone so hard on the career and professional elements, but what were the notes and things? What were the goals and intentions, and maybe things that had been shortlisted but I hadn't committed to? What I started to realize was that there were these 8 different areas to my life that were consistent over these previous few years of making annual plans for myself. And I thought, okay, well, if there's these 8 consistent themes and categories, need to get a bit more intentional about adding fuel to all of them, not just some of them. So that's where this idea of living a fueled up life comes from, is that when my life has felt the most amazing and the most fueled up, it's been because I've been looking after all of these 8 tanks and not just some of them.
Well, let's talk about these 8 different tanks. What?
Yes.
8 different tanks for everybody that's listening out there? I'm really curious as well, because I want to know what they are so I can make sure I'm filled up too.
Yeah, so the first one is my relationship with myself. And I now fundamentally believe that my relationship with myself sets the tone for every other relationship that I
I
have.
couldn't agree more. I could not agree more.
And that's kind of the realization that I had in Indonesia was like, wow, Sammi, you've neglected yourself and your relationship with yourself for a long time now. And if things are going to change, it's going to start with you. So then the second tank is romantic relationship. So for me, that's my marriage, but for some other people that might be dating or trying to find that person or build that relationship. The third one is relationship and network. So recognizing that if I want to go far, I want to go with other people, and those relationships don't just happen. I need to invest in them.
And I just actually want to stop there for 1 second. And so Sammi and I are together in a business group, and Sammi is one of the biggest cheerleaders in that group. She supports everybody, and she's so kind and supportive. So that obviously is part of your fueling up, and you do it so well. You know, you're such a beautiful support to all the ladies there, and it's really lovely to see.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, I believe, like, there's room for everybody, and we're going to rise together, and we're going to rise faster. And I think because I've had experiences where my achievements haven't felt like they've been celebrated by people in my life, that I love the opportunity to be that for other business owners, for other women in business, for other entrepreneurs, for other people who are self-employed or freelancing. And like, yes, you set yourself a thing and you did the thing. Like, yes, let's celebrate and applaud that. Like you, Jen, launching this podcast, like I know you put that off for like such a long time, and I'm so excited that I'm here on your show talking to you about the things that you're really passionate about.
I still look back actually, Sam, and go, a podcast, how did this even happen? And I'm actually going to launch a second one, which is even more ridiculous for my branding business. And I'm going, 2 podcasts, how did that happen? Anyway.
Yeah.
But you're a fabulous cheerleader.
But yeah, I think that's a great example of like the relationship and network. Like I am very conscious about investing in that now. So the fourth tank is humming household, and that's about that my house and my home, it's way more important how it feels than how it looks. And is that, are the systems in place and are they working? Because if I spend all of my time and energy solving the little problems like running out of ingredients for dinner, or not having toilet paper, or running out of batteries, or like I've got no clean clothes to wear, or like, oh, I forgot to put the whatever in the dryer now, like whatever, those are little problems. And if I'm not careful, those little problems can be at the top of my list all the time. So what do I need to do to keep my humming household fueled up so that those stay little problems? So the fifth one is career and business, and recognizing that opportunities don't just happen. I create them, and what do I need to do to add fuel to that tank? The fifth one is wealth and lifestyle, and that's very much about like, yeah, you could be making bank, you could be making the money, but do you have the lifestyle that you want to support that? Or vice versa, do you have all of the time and all of the freedom and all of the flexibility, but none of the wealth? And that's not just wealth in like the here and the now, but like wealth in the future too. So tank number 7, the world. Something that I've realized is that, you and I, Jen, and anyone who's listening to this, like you have a unique gift, you have a unique contribution, you have a unique point of view, and you have causes and projects and problems in the world that are really meaningful to you. And I know that when I've been removed from those things and I haven't been sharing my gifts or my talents or contributing to causes or projects that are meaningful to me, that feels awful. Like, so for me, like that, fueling that tank is about contributing to the United Nations global goals, and particularly projects that are centered around education, because I believe that, when we educate people, it's one of the fastest ways we can lift people, communities, and countries out of poverty. And that's what I want to see in this world. But and then also just using my gifts and talents to contribute to that. Like when I'm leaving those things dormant, the tank runs pretty empty pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last one is tank number 8, which is the future. And that's recognizing that current Sammi and future Sammi are actually the same Sammi. And if I don't ever take the time to add fuel to my future tank, it's probably not going to be that pretty. And sometimes that future tank can be about like goal setting and vision building and things. But other times it's like, hey, have you got the savings plan in place? Or have you got the wealth plan in place? Or have you got the insurance in place? Like, what do you need to do to take care of future Sammi?
I love this so much. I can't say how much I love this. It's just, it's such a great way to do life, Sammi. Really, it is to think about all these things. And this, I think, is a lot of people don't think about it. You know, they just kind of go on their way doing the things. And I love the way that you've broken it down into the 8 different tanks. And I know I personally, I'm going to come back and listen to this episode again because I want to write them all down because I think it's an absolutely amazing way to live life. And I was listening to them all. I'm like, yep, 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 yep. You know, I can identify with this. So well done. And I want to say congratulations.
Thank
Because I think
you.
it's amazing. I think it's truly, truly amazing the way you are so self-aware and so wise.
Oh, you're so beautiful, Jen. Yeah, but I mean, what I realized is like, I don't know if anyone's ever been to a yoga class before, and at the end of the class, you might do like a savasana or the dead body pose, and you're literally just lying there, and you can scan from the tip of your toes right up to the tip of your head, and recognizing how does that feel? How does that, how do the legs feel? How does the core feel? How do the arms feel? How does your head feel? And you might realize that, hey, actually, the majority of me feels pretty amazing right now. And it's really only like my left elbow that's a bit niggly. And
Yeah.
sometimes we can get so stuck on that one tank that is empty without recognizing, hey, actually, I've got 7 other tanks that are, on
Okay.
the top side of full. And I think that also this sort of diagnostic framework for me just helps me identify like, do I need to go for a massage or do I actually just need to sit down with my spreadsheet and figure out a couple of wealth and lifestyle things? Or do I need to go for a run and a walk on the beach? Or do I need to sit down and do my grocery shopping? And that would actually get my household humming again.
Yeah, yeah.
It just helps me recognize which tank needs fuel.
It's so good. And one thing I want to talk about too, and I'm pretty sure this would be very much one of your tanks as well. Your show, Date Forever.
Yeah.
It focuses a lot on your relationship with yourself and with Nathan. How we've talked about the relationship to yourself, but how does that set the tone for every other relationship that you have?
Yeah, so our show Date Forever, we've had it for maybe 3 and a bit years now. So there's 150 or more episodes that you can go and listen to.
Amazing.
We've chatted with couples and experts about the tips and tricks they've found to keep a relationship fueled up. So it's this really nice balance where we've heard from the theory and the research from experts, and then we hear from, everyday couples about what's working for them, what are some of the strategies and tactics and things. But it's about recognizing that when that core relationship is in pain or is it hurting or is running close to empty, like for me, that empties out most of the other ones. It's very hard for me to feel my best when my relationship's in pain, my romantic relationship's in pain.
100%.
So Nathan and I are really intentional that one of the things that we've implemented in the last few years is our 2x2x2 date night practice. So the 3-2, so the first 2 is that every 2 weeks we go out for a date night. I should say twice a month. We're not quite as rigid as, every second Friday. Nath takes responsibility for the date in the first half of the month, and then I take responsibility for the date in the second half of the month. That kind of gives us the nice sort of balance and harmony of the opportunity to give and receive, and take ownership and accountability. Like, as I said right at the beginning, I was an event manager, so it was my nature to organize and plan and get things in the diary, but I was robbing myself of the chance to receive, and I wasn't giving Nathan enough runway to create those experiences. So that's the first 2. Then the second 2 is that every other month we have a night away somewhere. More often than not, we piggyback that onto, an event that we're attending, a concert or a wedding or something like that. Sometimes it's just a long weekend and we get away, but for us, the the opportunity to get out of our normal environment, we have such different conversations, and that investment is always worth it. And then the third two is that twice a year we get away for a holiday. That was a little bit more challenging in the pandemic days, but yeah, to take intentional time to be away.
This is so good. And I'm going to actually stop and talk quickly about, for us, those of us that are empty nesters, this is a great way to re-spark our relationships as well. Because so often the kids fly the coop and it's like, oh, what are we going to do now? This is the perfect way to do it, ladies. I love this again so much, Sammi. I feel very privileged to have you on here.
Oh.
Giving your wisdom, and because, especially as a younger person, as we get to these, middle ages, we kind of forget this stuff. And you hearing that, like me hearing that from you. Now, actually, it's funny because I am sitting in a hotel room right now, doing this interview because it's my husband's and my anniversary. So we are quite pedantic about, having time together. But I really like this 2x2, and like he does a date and I do a date. I think that's such a great idea. And I think ladies that are listening out there, if you need to get a bit of spark back into your relationship, once the kids are gone, this would be the perfect way to do it. This leads me on to something else, Sammi. In your bio, you're an author in the making. Yeah. Is this what you're going to be writing about?
Yeah, so I'm writing about the fueled up life, and specifically like how can women in business maintain a fueled up life without doing what I did in my career and just going all in on one tank. I'm sure you've probably heard stories, Jen, or maybe you've experienced it for yourself, that what can happen when we get so single focused on one area of life, and in some cases that's business, and that comes at the cost of a romantic relationship or relationships with kids, or the personal finance, because it's been so focused on supporting and growing a business. So yeah, I'm writing about how these 8 different fuel tanks can contribute to having a really incredible fueled up life, but while maintaining that holistic view that there's some pretty ambitious women out there, myself included. I put myself in that category. That's not always easy to do, and like you just said, sometimes we need the reminder about what does a really great life actually look like, because I'm sure it's probably more than just a thriving business.
100%. There's so many facets to our lives of different things, and a thriving business might be part of it. And I mean, both you and I are self-employed, and we know that we love to have a thriving business, but there's just so much more to that. Now tell me, the different tanks, are they what got you your pink back? Is that what brought your pink back to you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, developing the framework for me to think about my life and the methodology to think about my life, and then being very intentional in going into 2020. So the first year I really started to live and breathe this framework and set goals in all of these different areas of life, not just a couple of them. But like I said, I really did start with my relationship with myself. And one of the first things that I did when I got back to Australia was to sit down with a journal and a notebook and to start my list of what are the 100 things that bring me joy. Some of them are paid, some of them are not. Some of them are seeing a sunrise, some of them are having snuggles with my dog, some of them are trying a new cafe or doing a coastal walk. And I started to get far more intentional about how could I be injecting some of these 100 little things or experiences or moments or into my life with regularity, not just when I remembered. How can I make fueling my tank every single day a priority?
Absolutely. Now, you actually coach others on this now, which again is so amazing. When you're coaching, how do you weave in these personal experiences and setbacks? How has it shaped the way you actually coach others?
Yeah, for me, I think it provides like a really nice way to just provide the diagnostic. Actually, yesterday I was coaching a business owner and founder, and they're in a hard season of their business. Like without a doubt, this is a hard season. and their partner had said to them, like, I just feel like you're not the same anymore. And we were sort of unpacking that conversation. And I'd asked them, what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it? I'm sure that's not the climate that you want in your romantic relationship. And their initial response was, well, I'd never let it get that bad. And this is kind of how I can introduce that framework, is like, okay, cool. Well, where would you say the tank is? How full is your romantic relationship tank right now? Okay, you're saying it's probably like bottom third. What do you need to do to add more fuel back in? And what would that look like? And yeah, you're in this difficult season of your life, but what would be incredibly meaningful and tank filling for your relationship? Would it be carving out a couple of hours of quality time? Would it be sending a gift to that person who's feeling, really disconnected right now? But that's kind of how the framework can really help you go, okay, which tank is my priority right now in my life? Which one needs fuel, and which ones can wait? Because this method for me isn't about having all 8 tanks full all of the time. It's just about being far more conscious that, hey, yeah, I can see that my humming household is not a priority right now. I'm going after these career goals. I'm going after these these opportunities with friends or family or whatever it might be. I'm going to take this trip away, and my household's probably going to take the hit on that one. But yeah, I think providing the framework to say, if everything's important, nothing's important. But for me, using this framework invites people to come back and ask, like, what is most important right now, and which tank needs fuel?
Yeah, because we can't be running on an empty tank.
No.
And if one of those tanks is empty, it does impact every other tank.
Yeah, and if you start to get 2 or 3 that are really empty,
yes,
it hurts, and it does. It impacts your other tanks without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if someone is struggling to rediscover their pink, what would you suggest, like the first steps for them to move forwards towards healing and creating that fueled up life that you've done so successfully?
Yeah. It probably comes back to sort of what I was talking about with realizing why I was behaving the way that I was, to create that burnout about that worthiness. Like if you're having a hard time prioritizing yourself, if you're having a hard time making time or spending money or carving out energy for you, you need to get curious about why that is. Why do you feel that you're not worthy of giving those gifts to yourself? Because I can give you all of the tips and tricks and things that have really worked for me around, like, this adds fuel or that adds fuel, but you really need to start with that core relationship with self of feeling worthy of those things.
Absolutely. And yeah, I love the idea of being curious, like be curious enough and think enough of yourself to be curious. Having your own self-worth, going, I am important enough to actually do this work.
Yeah, I'm important enough to carve out 1 hour this week to go for a coffee on my own, and I'm going to see how I feel during that coffee. I might just enjoy it and be on my own and sit in my own company and think, or I might journal, or I might people watch, or that might spark the opportunity to be like, okay, here's the other commitments I'm going to make to myself in this next month. Here are the handful of things that are going to help me add fuel to my tank. And we're not all the same either. Like the things that add fuel for me might deplete fuel for others. And I think it's about really getting really curious and well acquainted with yourself about what adds fuel and what drains it, what burns fuel.
Exactly. Things that burn the fuel the fastest.
There's
sometimes the things that can be taken out of your life.
Yeah, or at least done more sparingly.
Exactly.
Or if you really got to do the things, maybe it's family that you maybe don't love interacting with. That is a real drain on that relationship. It's a network tank. Like, what do you need to do to manage that tank? What are the other activities that you need to say yes to add fuel in, knowing that you're going to go through this depletion?
Yeah. Sammi, it has been amazing having you on here today. I've got one last question for you. With your passion for creating a better world, what is one message or piece of advice that you would like the ladies to take away with them today?
Oh, specifically about creating a better world?
creating a better world for in general for them?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I got really passionate about education and contributing to education projects because I tapped into how much impact that can have. And I think when we are our best selves and living our beautiful filled up life, we can pour from the overflow too. So I think it really, I don't know, was it Mother Teresa or it was someone fancy said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I think that's where it starts, right? If your relationship with yourself is not that great, you're really not going to be able to offer that much to others. So start there. But yeah, I'm really grateful that I've been able to go through this journey for myself. I've got lots of practices now around keeping my relationship with myself filled up. That's not to say I don't get it wrong. Like a couple of weeks ago, I made some commitments that totally breached my boundaries and I should not have said yes. And I've learned from that and I won't do it again. But yeah, but I had nothing else to offer in those couple of weeks where I'd overcommitted and really taken on too many self-tank depleting commitments. Yeah, so I think in a roundabout way, yeah, go home and love yourself and figure out what you want to offer this world and then what problem you care about solving.
I think it is important because I've been on a journey, of course, and for me now, like the thing I love, and I was listening to, with Tank 7, is me to be helping women build that strong business and strong brand with my marketing business. So if life is not that fairy tale, they have a business that allows them to stand on their own 2 feet. That is something I'm so passionate about. And that comes to education as well, because it's actually educating them to build this strong brand. And, that absolutely fuels me up doing that. And it's very exciting. And I think, but if I hadn't have had that relationship with myself, I wouldn't have been able to figure out that's what fuels me up.
Yeah.
So it's very important to be able to see inside yourself and realize what actually does make you, what brings joy to you.
Yeah. And I love that one, Jen, because we know the good things that happen when we get money in the hands of women. They make great decisions for their community, or their families, their communities, and their countries. So yeah, I love that. That's one of something that fuels you up. I love that. That's your contribution to this world, is helping other women.
Yeah, it's something that just keeps me going. It's one of the reasons I like to get out of bed. But thank you for putting that into a little tank for me. I love that.
Yeah.
Sammi, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom. I can't wait for your book to come out. When your book comes out, I will have to get you back on so we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think that you have given so many fabulous pearls of wisdom today for the ladies. No matter what stage in life you're at, everybody can do and live this fueled up life. So thank you so much for coming on. And to all the ladies that are listening out there, remember, girls, live your life in full color, whatever that color may be for you. Thank you so much for listening today. See you later. Bye, Sammi.
Thanks, Jen.
Hey, ladies, I created this podcast because I know we need more of it to help us bring back our pink and live our best lives. But guess what? We can't do this alone. So if you loved this episode, let's spread the word. Share it on your socials, send it to a friend, and don't forget to write us a review. By doing this, you become part of the movement to bring back your pink and inspire others to do the same. I'm incredibly grateful to have you in my world as we live life in full color and become our authentic selves. Together, we're unstoppable. Let's keep rocking and bringing back the pink.